Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today is Videography, bringing new life to your social media presence. Today is Thursday, August 5th, and I'm so happy that you can join us for the Tourism Nova Scotia webinar series. My name is Nick Fry. I'm the Manager of Business Development with Tourism Nova Scotia. And for those of you joining us for the first time, Tourism Nova Scotia is the marketing agency for the province of Nova Scotia, and we lead initiatives to grow the tourism industry. The pandemic has had significant impacts on businesses, and this webinar is meant to offer tips and tricks and reasonable things that you can do with your businesses to help improve them. So excited today. Now, what's important to remember is that this webinar is going to be recorded. So if you see something great or that you want to come back and check, it's going to be available to you. Now, we encourage you to ask questions throughout. The dialogue is really important to make sure that we get really valuable information. So if you have any questions, they're on the bottom there. And if we have anything that we discussed today that might be a link to another site or some kind of software that's really useful, we'll make sure we share that out in an email after the fact. So we really encourage you guys to answer and ask any questions. We also would encourage you to fill out the questionnaire that we send out after the fact to make sure that we're offering the most relevant webinars that we can. And we will have closed captioning enabled. So if you don't want to see that, just you can put a live transcript at the bottom and just turn it off. So really excited today to, sorry about that, to introduce Rove Productions. So we have Ryker and Matt. Ryker is an Acadia University grad who began managing social creating video and photo assets for Blended Athletics. Matt's journey began when he was searching for something more fulfilling after a stint in the Navy and working in the investment world. These two joined forces to create Rove Productions 2 years ago, and they're offering really unique content throughout Nova Scotia. They've worked with the Wine Association, lots of really small businesses, and today we're going to get a lot of really great techniques that will offer us that we can use in our own businesses. The quote, they marry the art of beautiful cinema with the strategic marketing to provide the best possible outcomes for their clients. So really excited to have Ryker and Matt here today. I'd like to invite them to share their screen and again, ask as many questions as you can. Try to put it in the Q&A if you can, because sometimes it gets lost in the chat. And thanks for joining us, Ryker and Matt.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning. Let's start this off.
All right.
Thank you for the introduction, Nick. Today, we're going to be going over bringing new life to your social media presence. As stated previously, my name is Matthew.
And I'm Ryker.
And we're the co-founders and two of the current partners of Rove Productions. Today, our topic of discussion that we're going to be covering is creating with your phone. The applications of some of the content we're going to be creating, going over where to post it and which formats. And then we're going to talk about outsourcing content versus what you and your team can handle in-house.
Yeah, so the first topic that we're going to talk about here is creating with your phone. Now, everything we're going to go over here is specific to like iPhone or smartphone. It's really translatable between the two. So the menu systems might look a little different or the buttons might look a little different, but everything we're going to go over applies to really any kind of phone and even some cameras in this case. So first off, we're going to go over phone basics, just a really quick guide as to how to set up your phone and get the most out of the camera that you have with you basically every day. Second, we're going to go over composition. So like horizontal versus vertical filming, and different ways to frame your subjects or products or landscapes or whatever you're shooting. We're going to go over lighting, and we're going to go over some shot techniques. So some fun little things that you can do to spice up your videos. So first off, knowing your camera. I'm just going to grab my phone here for a second, just because I find this a little bit easier if I'm kind of explaining it here. Changing your camera settings is going to be the first thing, or I guess checking your camera settings is going to be the first thing I would recommend to anyone. Whether you have an iPhone or Android, you can go into your settings and click on camera settings, and there should be a little tab there that'll show you what frame rate or what quality that you're filming at. So most modern smartphones can shoot anything from 720p, which would be kind of lower end of standard definition, all the way up to 4K and even some cases 6K if you're shooting on something absolutely crazy like a red phone. But changing your camera settings to give you the best output would be the first thing that I would recommend. So shooting in 4K, 24 frames a second. That's what we would be aiming for there. Next up, we have a little trick here for locking your focus and your exposure. So I know the sample that's on here right now is an iPhone, but this goes the same for Android phones. We've all been there where we've been, just gonna set this off to the side here, where we've been panning across the room, showing something beautiful or taking a selfie, and all of a sudden we're turning and we see windows and everything gets really, really dark. And then we keep turning and then everything brightens back up again. And it kind of ruins the composition of the video that you're taking. So a little trick that you can do here, if you go into your camera settings, or sorry, just into your camera and just tap with your finger and hold, that's actually going to bring up a little window, whether it's a circle on Android or a square, like the yellow square you see there on iPhone. And then you'll see a little sun appear beside that. Now, if you drag your finger up or down, now this is going to be a tough little example to see here, but for example, if I tap and then pull down, you're going to see the exposure go down. If I go up, it's going to get really bright. So you can adjust that there. And then to lock that in, you just tap the square again, and it's going to stay focused on that position, but also keep the lighting the same and consistent. So just a nice little tip. If you're doing any of the shots that we're going to talk about later on, this is something that you're going to want to know. And it's a little trick that not a lot of people know about. One thing that we see a lot of when we're dealing with smartphone photography or videography is people shooting video on their front-facing camera. So it is really convenient, and there's a time and place if you're doing a talking piece and you're trying to showcase what's behind you, or you're trying to engage with your following. Looking at the camera is great, but as you can see here, we do have a couple examples. This is just a tree in our backyard, but there's a lot going on in this photo. So just for reference, on the left here, we have a frame taken from the front-facing camera, so you can see that everything's a little mushy in there. There's not a lot of detail, and the clarity is just not there. It's not as high quality. Versus if we look at the back-facing camera, we're going to get a lot more quality out of that, a lot more sharpness, a lot more resolution. So any circumstance that we can, we always try to get people to shoot with their back-facing camera. You're going to get the most out of it. It's going to give you the best quality. And quality is everything when you're shooting on your phone, because when you're uploading to social media, it's always going to compress things, and it's always going to make things look just a little bit worse than they were when you originally shot it.
All right, next up we have composition, which is probably one of my favorite things when it comes to creating content, because it really allows you to frame and set things up to be a little bit higher produced. So for this section, we're going to go over filming horizontal versus vertical, and we will go into even more detail a little bit later in the presentation as to which format you should film for different platforms. We're going to go over some of the when and the whys, and then the rule of thirds. So jumping right down to the rule of thirds, this is I guess if you were to look at it from like a cinema standpoint, this is kind of one of the golden rules that people try and do when it comes up to framing or trying to make better content. And essentially what it is taking the frame in which you're filming and breaking it up into 3 vertical and horizontal quadrants. So as you see in this example to the right, there's 9 smaller squares, but we have 3 intersecting points horizontally and then vertically. So the idea behind rule of thirds is you want to frame a subject at an intersecting point or point of interest. So for example, here we have Lightfoot and Wolfville. We have it framed at the bottom right intersecting point. And you have the rest of this negative space filled up with the landscapes, the skies, and the clouds. And basically what the aim here is to do is by placing a subject in one of these intersecting points, typically for most people, it's just a more aesthetically pleasing look, and it helps direct your eyes. So where you have Lightfoot and Wolfville on the bottom right, if you were to look at this image, your eyes are initially drawn right down here, and then you can kind of unfold and see the rest of the story here. Here are three other examples from our personal work, some photos we've taken that display how we utilize the rule of thirds, both in a 1x1 format, vertical and horizontal. So this right here is Dingwall Beach up in Cape Breton. And as you can see, I framed this image right down the center column here. So basically this is a nice leading line of the beach. Your eyes are drawn to this runway, so to speak, leading up to the mountains that actually have positioned up in the top quadrant. So you just have nice aesthetic framing here. This center example is a really great one of a more of a creative output. Now, the big thing about the rule of thirds are you should see these as like a guide, right? These aren't laws. They're not written in stone. They're used to overall help more of an aesthetic image, but you shouldn't feel like you're confined to these. You can break the rules. You can do whatever you want, really. You know, I love the fact that art is subjective, so you can have fun with it. But from a viewer standpoint, we do try to kind of keep to this sometimes, especially for client work, just because we know subconsciously to the viewer, it is going to be a more aesthetic shot. But back to the center example, we have Ryker's cute little dog, Callie here, which he framed here center bottom, leaving almost the top, the second and third quadrant completely empty with just a cherry blossom in the background. Typically, most people would advise from utilizing this much negative space. But again, from an artistic standpoint and what you're trying to convey, you're allowed to have fun with it. This second example here is another one I really like because we're actually utilizing two subjects and depth. So again, Ryker has me placed in this bottom right intersecting point with my camera, but then in the top and bottom left intersecting points, he also has the waterfall as a secondary subject. Now, where there's so much depth between me and the waterfall, your eyes naturally get drawn to the subject here first, but then evolve to be able to see this waterfall as well. So it just kind of gives a nice balanced image as well.
All right, on to lighting. So the lighting is going to make or break your video. If you have bad lighting, typically you're going to have a bad video. And it's one of the things that it's almost impossible to change in post-production unless you're shooting on like a production camera. But even then, make your life significantly easier by just getting the lighting right if you can, okay? So what kind of two main things is how you light your subject and time of day. So for a lot of the shoots that we do, they're outside. So it's weather dependent. A day like today when it's raining, not the greatest, but an overcast day is going to give us some really nice lighting. Time of day also plays in when you're kind of looking for a certain aesthetic. So you might have heard the term golden hour or blue hour thrown around if you've ever worked with a photographer or videographer in the past. Golden hour refers to the hour kind of right before and leading up to sunset or sunrise, after sunrise. And blue hour refers to the hour like after sunset or before sunrise. Sorry, I'm getting that mixed up. But golden hour is going to give you some nice warm hues in your photos and video. And then blue hour is going to give you a little bit darker, a little bit moodier, and a little bit more of those blues. So time of day is going to play a huge factor. The other thing that we want to try and avoid when we're filming outside or inside really is the middle of the day. So high noon, when the sun is at its highest, is when we're going to get the harshest shadows on our subject. So if you can avoid, especially filming people or yourself or whatever you might be filming outside at high noon, there is a time and place for it, but ideally we're looking for kind of later in the afternoon towards the evening or earlier in the morning to shoot outside. Obviously, not everyone can fit to that schedule. So sometimes you just have to shoot when you can shoot, but to get the best lighting possible, that's what you're going to do. When it comes to how to light your subject, we have front lighting, side lighting, and then back lighting, which kind of is like a big no-no in anything, unless you're doing some specific product stuff. But front lighting, for example, I'm actually going to pick the laptop up here for a second, just because this is an example that I always like to show. But if I'm here, we have two windows right in front of us. We're positioned in the corner. This is going to give us the most even light on ourselves. If I turn and bring myself all the way around, now you can see I'm a bit darker here. The windows are now blown out. Okay, so they're really bright in the background and they're kind of taking away from my visual. So that's where we want to try and avoid backlighting. And we really just want to try and stick to that nice, even front lighting. So if you're filming inside, if you can position yourself in front of a window and have the camera facing yourself, or filming so that the product is in front of the window and you're facing the product, that's always going to give you the best overall even lighting. The other piece is side lighting. And now this is a little bit more kind of stylistic as well, but not so much as backlighting. If you look down in the bottom left here, we have a shot from a shoot that we did with Avondale Sky, and we have the bottle of wine positioned here, and the lighting is actually coming in harsh from the left. Okay. And we have the right side of the bottle. I guess if you're looking at the bottle from the bottle's perspective, the left side of the bottle is going to be well lit. The right side of the bottle, we have a bit of a harsher shadow on. So it just adds a little bit more depth to the subject. If I was to turn to the side and the camera was turned to the side as well, we get a little bit more depth from the face, whereas the front on lighting is going to be flat. It's going to be even. It's going to be very nice. But you can add a little bit of a drama to your subject or to your product or to whatever you're shooting with some nice side lighting.
All right, so next up we have cinematic shots. So now this is a quick and easy thing you can start implementing right away with your smartphone, whether it's an establishment you're trying to show off, a location you're trying to show off, just things that are gonna make the shots look just a little bit better and just a little bit higher produced. So we're gonna go over the jib, the slide, the reveal. We're gonna touch on adding depth to your videos and photos just to be able to kind of increase that overall professionalism to it, and then adding a subject and some angles. So right here is an example we're going to have when we were at Mercator last summer getting a shot. We were in a pretty big open field, so there wasn't really a lot of unique vantage points for us to harness to be able to get some really nice shots of the establishments. And we really want to showcase how beautiful this winery was. So what we used to our advantage in this video was a small patch of yellow flowers that could have been no higher than 3 inches off the ground.
4 inches.
They look a lot bigger in the video, but yeah, we'll play this video and show you guys. It's pretty interesting how it worked out.
So we're at Mercator today, and we're getting some establishing shots of the actual winery. We're kind of in a field, so there's not a whole lot of interesting things to kind of add. So instead of just getting a pan in the backside, I'm going to get low with some of these yellow flowers to add to the foreground to make the shot a bit more dynamic. So fast shot for the camera to go. Oh, that's it. Instead of a shot like this.
So right here, I'm just going to pause in the video. You can see the difference in the shots. This top one was just me standing, holding the camera at shoulder height, panning across, and it still is a beautiful shot of Mercator. It shows you the whole, the establishment and what it has to offer. But this lower shot, all I did was I dropped the camera down, I cantered it up on a bit of an angle, and I utilized these little yellow flowers here to add some depth. So basically having this subject of the flowers in the foreground is adding a little bit more depth to Mercator itself, and the downward cantered up angle is positioning Mercator into a point of importance. So those are two tips when it comes to having the angle of your camera. Anytime you have your camera on your phone, either vertical or horizontal, pointing down towards something, it usually frames the subject or the establishment into an inferior position. If you angle the camera upwards, it puts it into a position of importance.
More grand.
More grand. So next up, this is the jib style shot. Now, precursor to this video, this touches back on what Ryker had mentioned about locking focus and exposure. So from this still frame, the thumbnail of the video, you can see right now that the gates at the back of Lightfoot Muffle here, the light is bleeding through here, just really blowing it out. So now if I didn't preemptively lock my exposure and focus, as I'm doing the jib shot, panning down from the ceiling, as you'll see in a moment, down to this gate, exposing the beautiful foyer of Lightfoot Muffle, all that light coming through the gate would overexpose my image, and it would do that really weird fluctuation where it tries to counteract the exposure, but locking exposure and focus counteracts that, and you'll see that right here.
All right, exposure locked. We're going to do a jib shot here. So we're starting from up top, panning down, revealing the interior.
And then you get a nice
locked,
even pan of the establishment without having that flex of exposure. And you might have noticed as well that we did this in the camera app. I know a lot of people when they're doing content, even if it's for just for an Instagram story. They might hold Instagram up and record it. Preemptively doing it in the camera app, you're going to get a higher quality as well. So when you then import that to Instagram, it's going to look a little bit more polished as well. This next shot is one we probably use the most.
Yeah.
For any time we're trying to intro a video or outro a video, or we're just trying to, I almost want to say, add a bit of suspense to a shot, just a little bit of a buildup, and it's the reveal shot. And now in this shot, again, we're combining foreground, adding depth in both shots because we're panning around an object. We're utilizing the lock focus, lock exposure, so we don't have that flex of exposure. And play this first example here.
So Matt's doing a quick reveal shot here. So he's locking focus. We're just going to go from behind the bush. Boom, there we go.
Super simple, but just a really nice way to kind of, again, add a little bit of depth to the shot. And then we're adding suspense, not like scary suspense, but like just
a little bit of a build up, a runway of anticipation. Now, this next example is one you can use much like, I guess it's more of an extreme example of the Mercator video we showed previously, where, again, we're in an open area where we don't have many things that we can actually pan behind to have a reveal shot. So you'll see what I utilize in this video here, and it works.
It's actually something that we do pretty often, to be honest, is either using an arm or a backpack.
Even if you don't have anything to do a reveal from, you can just use somebody who you're with and just reveal from behind the shoulder. That's nice. Woo!
So there's another great example of that reveal shot. I'm just going to come right back when we show Ryker's shoulder here.
That's nice. Woo!
So as we're panning around Ryker's shoulder, if you were to watch this video without us explaining that it was his shoulder, chances are you wouldn't really know what it was, nor would you be trying to pick up what it is. You're just getting that aesthetic feel, that vibe of that reveal shot. So sometimes, you know, it's as simple as using someone's shoulder, to Ryker's point, if you have a bag or just something in the area. And what this is doing, again, is it's adding depth. And the cool thing about using a random object like a shoulder or a bag is where you're so tight to that object and you're focused on what's further in the background. It's so blurred out that there's really no rendition of what it could be. You can kind of get away with using almost anything and being super creative with it.
Yeah. All right. So kind of those are a few of the shots that you can do to make your videos look a little bit more cinematic. And obviously how to actually use your camera to its fullest to get the most out of the content that you are creating. We have like half a dozen apps here. There's so many more, but these are just a handful of the apps that we use basically on a daily basis to create content for ourselves or to help create content for our clients at Rove. So the first one is Over. Now, just to like pair these up, I guess, Over and Canva are very similar platforms. They're both free. They both have a paid version, but currently we don't use the paid version because you can get so much out of using the free version of it. Okay. So Over is basically an app that you can add photos or videos into. You can add different textures, different overlays, different transitions. You can create some really nice aesthetic looking posts with some simple graphics, and it's very user friendly. So this is one that I recommend to basically everyone that we work with because it's just so easy to use, and it just ups the production quality of a simple iPhone photo or iPhone video to that next level without having to spend hours and hours and hours trying to figure out how to use a complex program. Same thing goes for Canva. This one's awesome because you can create anything from a magazine to a pitch deck to a slideshow. But for video specifically, these are nice because if you have just a nice still video, say you're at the beach or you're shooting in your restaurant, what have you, and you just have a nice static photo or video, you can just add a little text pop-up on there of weekend sale or like a Q&A or anything like that. It's all customizable. The colors are customizable. It's really endless what you can do with these two apps.
And next up, we have InShot, just this center top one. And this is an app that I use at least weekly, if not multiple times a week. You know, companies like Grove Productions, we utilize a program called Premiere Pro. It's our video editing software. Some other companies might use Final Cut Pro, which is an Apple-based video editing product. But InShot is essentially both of those on a more simplified platform designed for smartphones, and it is available on Apple and Android. And what InShot allows you to do is import a slew of video clips, and then you can cut and trim them to your desire, piece them together, and then there's preset transitions you can actually put between clips. So you can virtually edit an entire video within InShot, and then you can also put filters on top of it. You can import music from your music library. They have a few copyright-free songs that are actually implemented into the software itself that you can utilize. So it won't potentially get flagged through Instagram stories or posts. And you can also reverse clips. You can change the orientation of clips, the crops of clips. It actually allows you to change your orientation or canvas size. So if you want to do vertical 9x16, you can. If you want to swap it to 19x20, you can 1x1. Like, you have so much free range in this app. It's super, super handy. And again, like, I use it frequently. Next up, we have Unfold. This one's geared towards Instagram stories specifically. And what Unfold provides you is a series of templates in which you can drag and drop photos and video for the purpose of posting it to your Instagram story. And it's just different themed templates. So you can get an old school Super 8mm film. So you can implement, they have a variety of different styled canvases of the same theme. So for the Super 8, you can have like 2 images top and bottom, and it has the old film grain board around them. There's a scrapbook one where it looks like the photos are torn out of the scrapbook. And again, it's just to add more of an aesthetic flair to your Instagram stories, as well as a series of customizable texts as well to put on top of it that are a little bit more pleasing to the eye than some of the pre-installed text that Instagram offers for their stories.
Definitely. The next one here is called Double Take. Now, this is an interesting one, and it is very niche, but it's a really cool app because it allows you to access your front-facing camera and your rear-facing camera at the same time. Basically, the layout would look like you're FaceTiming or video calling yourself. So you can choose to have your front-facing camera as the large screen, and then have a picture-in-picture, so like a smaller screen of your rear-facing camera. So this is really handy if you're doing, say, a tour of your business, if you're walking around showcasing maybe a new layout, new construction, new house, new Airbnb, what have you, doing product reviews, or just trying to walk people through something. So this is one that you could utilize, say, if you are a gym owner, for example. You could have a coach with the camera facing themselves, explaining the movement, while you have an athlete or a gym member doing the movement and you're correcting it. So it's just cool because you can add both videos in there without actually having to use an editing program to have 2 videos playing at the same time. And then the last one there is Quick, and it's similar to InShot. Personally, I've used Quick for years. It was originally an app built for GoPros, and then Apple bought it, and they do have it on Android and the Apple Store. But basically, this one's really nice because you drag and drop your videos into this, and if you have no editing experience whatsoever, you can actually just hit go, and it will edit the video the way that its algorithm sees best fitting for the clips that you put into it. There's different custom templates which you can change. So if you drag the clips in and you don't want to edit it, but you don't like the way they look, you can still rearrange them. You can add text, you can add filters, you can add music from your like Android music or your Apple Music. And they also have royalty-free music on there as well. So similar to InShot, just a really nice, simple way to edit videos on the go without a ton of experience. Obviously, the more you dive into these apps, the more you can get out of them. But surface level, they are all very user-friendly.
So next up, we have the applications, what and where to post. So starting off with Instagram. Instagram used to be single-handedly the easiest platform to create content for because it was solely just photos. It was super easy. Put a couple qualified hashtags, you're good to go. However, Instagram is probably the only social media platform now that's trying to compete with every other social media platform. So instead of just being a photo sharing app, You now have Instagram Reels, which are designed to combat TikTok. You have IGTV, which is longer format videos, such like YouTube. And then you still have your Instagram stories and your grid posts for photo and shorter video, which is just kind of what Instagram is built for. But what the CEO actually had came out and said, it was about a month ago now, I think, was that Instagram is no longer a photo sharing app. That put a couple people up in the frenzy because, most people use it for just photo, especially photographers, but they're transitioning more to a video sharing app. So in the preceding months in the coming year, Instagram's really start doing a push and prioritizing video footage more so than photos. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple months you start seeing more and more videos on your home screen when you're scrolling through instead of photos. And they're going to actually start implementing, because right now the largest format in which you can view a post on Instagram is 4:5. That's what takes up the most amount of screen real estate on your smartphone. They're going to start implementing full screen videos while you're scrolling. So instead of having to tap on the window to expand the reel, it'll just display it full screen so it maximizes your screen. So the plus and downside to that is Instagram's a little bit trickier for creating content for now, just because there's so many different formats in which you can post content, whether it's vertical 9:16 for reels or stories, it's 19:20 for IGTV, or it's just a 4:5 or 1:1 for a grid post. But the benefit to this is if you're creating content for all of those mediums on Instagram, then they double as a post for TikTok, they double for posts for Facebook or YouTube, and then they double for posts for LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, Instagram's definitely the kind of full shebang of content creation. If you could focus on one platform, we always recommend using Instagram, just because, like Matt said, you're basically creating content for every other platform in there. When it comes to LinkedIn, LinkedIn's a little different because LinkedIn's mainly used for B2B, like hiring, business to business interactions. And it still favors written content, actually, surprisingly, in 2021. But the video community is growing. The main thing that we would say when you're posting, if you want to post a video to LinkedIn, make sure that you have a really catchy piece in the first 5 to 10 seconds, or else you're going to lose people. Closed captioning on videos is always going to do really well, just because if you don't, most people don't turn the volume on their phones when they're scrolling through Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, what have you. So having that really good caption, it's either written or having the text appear on the screen, is always going to give you a bonus. And then also posting to LinkedIn and Facebook specifically, using native video is always going to give you the best outcome. And what that means is actually uploading the video to the platform and not posting a link. So if you're on LinkedIn and you type out this beautiful story and you're like, check the link below to go to YouTube and watch our video, LinkedIn is going to see that and they're going to see, oh, they're leaving our platform to go to another competing platform. So they're not going to push that content as far as they could. And same thing goes for Facebook, same thing goes for Instagram. So these platforms want you to stay as long as possible on their platform specifically. So anything you can do to keep people engaged there is going to help. And then Facebook, again, like more as a platform to update your audience, statuses, current events, giveaways, and again, native video on Facebook is always going to do better. We're going to dive into kind of a little bit on Facebook campaigns for video in a few minutes here, but basically Facebook for video, you want to be posting the same things you'd be posting on Reels, TikTok, Instagram. You want to keep it catchy. You want to keep people's attention.
So next up, we have some tips for engagement. So Ryker had loosely touched on this about the first couple seconds, keeping people's attention. We call this the hook. You need something to really lure them in the first 3 to 5 seconds or 1 to 2 lines of your text. Now, the thing about this is in 2019, Facebook ad analytics came out and said the most optimized ad was 15 seconds long. So that's why you start seeing a lot of these shorter form ads. Fast forward to halfway through 2021, that ideal ad spend has now dropped to 6 to 8 seconds, meaning you have 6 to 8 seconds to pull in someone's attention, deliver some sort of call to action, and get in and get out, because they're not they're not staying on that ad for longer than 8 seconds. And that's on the longer end.
It's actually incredible. Like we've gone from doing 90-second to 60-second videos was our kind of like our top seller for the longest time. And now these 6 to 8 seconds and 30-second bumpers are the ones that sell the most, just because a lot of people are trying to differentiate themselves on Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns.
And that's provided too, that you have a campaign or ad spend of sorts behind that to push that out with a call to action. There is still a time and a place for longer format videos. But again, that nowadays that really has to be story driven, has to have a narrative, a talking point of sorts to keep people's attention.
Yeah.
You can't really get away with doing a minute long video of just cinematic B-roll with a nice song, just because you're not going to keep people's attention for longer than maybe the first 15 seconds these days.
Yeah. The next one here is list format videos or photos or posts, whatever you want to do here. But things like my top 5 or the 3 best or 6 must-sees, things like that, because those titles in themselves are a hook. If you go on YouTube, for example, and you type in basically anything, if you just type in top restaurants in the world, you're going to get the first 10,000 videos are going to have a super catchy tagline of my top 5 or 3 best, things like that.
10 places you have to see.
Yeah. And it's all about how you word things in there, but also when you're doing your videos, if you can start your video off like that, it gets people in. Again, it's a hook. So the list format is really just an extension of the hook that we just talked about.
And next up is screen real estate, right? This is where you want to maximize the amount of space that you are capable of taking up on someone's smartphone while they're viewing your content, whether that's an ad, longer format video. Now, the tricky thing about this is you have to be a bit more intentional when it comes to the filming process to make sure you're doing this correctly. So one of my biggest pet peeves is with Instagram. I'll be out and I'll take like this beautiful landscape photo and I go to post it. But intuitively, I'm like, okay, this has to be a 4x5, which is the maximum format in which you can post a photo, which is vertical. But I took this beautiful landscape photo horizontally. I mean, I'll still most likely post it as a landscape. But when it comes to showing off ads and videos and photos to your viewers and people who are intrigued by your brand, you really want to maximize the screen real estate so you're not allowing little blips of other people's content. Because if you post a photo to Instagram on your cell phone and it's landscape, you're taking up maybe this much space. So on your screen, you're still going to have a bit of the preceding ad and then a bit of the ad on the bottom. So you're going to see text and captions from other people's videos or photos. You're going to see bits of their ad, things that are basically going to draw their eyes off your content into other people's content. Now, when it comes to doing stuff for, say, YouTube, Facebook, or even LinkedIn, those are for the most part 1920 by 1080 formats. So there's your typical widescreen. So you don't have to be as intentional with your filming, but it's just with some of these kind of instant social medias like Instagram or TikTok, where you really have to focus on filming things vertically and making sure you're getting enough in that vertical frame so that it's not getting cut off when you go to do it. Because even if you're filming everything widescreen and you're trying to convert that to Instagram for stories, reels, or TikTok, you have to remember that even though you filmed it horizontally, it's going to get posted vertically. And when it does that, it's going to zoom in and crop it, and you're losing about 30%, if not more, on the left and right side of your video. So you really have to either film wider, or a technique that we'll use sometimes if we get some really nice shots horizontally is we'll actually just stack the same video clip 3 times, top and bottom, because that takes up the entire screen. Yes, you're seeing 3 of the exact same clips stacked up on top of each other, but it still kind of has a bit of this it's nice flair to it.
It seems a little busy sometimes, but sometimes the shot's just so good that you don't want to zoom in on it. And like, when it comes to the screen real estate, like Matt said, for anything that you're shooting horizontal, that's great for YouTube, IGTV, Facebook, LinkedIn. But when you're doing kind of your on-the-go content creation for Reels or TikTok or stories, even for an Instagram grid post, if it's something that's a little bit more raw, always try and shoot vertical. It's so much easier to shoot vertical and not have to worry about reformatting it to take up more screen real estate than trying to do that later on.
And lastly, our biggest tip for increasing engagement is geared specifically towards Instagram, because that is one that people frequent the most as far as just mindless scrolling, that and TikTok nowadays. But that's your Instagram stories. So now an easy way to keep yourself at the forefront of your following's Instagram highlights and pages is to post a story, ideally as frequently as possible, but without seeming almost too pushy, spammy in your face. So we recommend doing a story first thing in the morning, another story around lunchtime, and another story around dinner time or at some point in the evening. Now, what this does is in the morning, you're solidifying your business's, your personal icon at the front row or in the front section of highlighted stories. So when they open their app, they see your icon and your name up there. And people normally just start at the beginning and start scrolling through the stories. Additionally, when you do that at lunchtime, that's bumping you back to the front of that catalog of stories. And same thing with the evening. It doesn't have to be any crazy informative content. It just has to be something as a placeholder to keep your business or your personal icon at the beginning of Instagram stories. And then throughout the day, if you have, a new product come in or you have a cool event, then you can start filling in your stories throughout those. But those three main staples, that'll help keep your Instagram page at the forefront of everyone else that someone may be following.
Perfect. So next, the last big topic that we want to talk about here is outsourcing versus creating in-house. So when you should hire a company like Rogue Productions versus when you should be creating on your phone at your business or for yourself if you're a solopreneur. So in-house creation, we have time and place, moments, and authenticity and identity are kind of the three main drivers for why we recommend people create content in-house. So time and place. Obviously, like we said, Reels, TikTok, and Instagram stories and day-to-day content that's just kind of behind the scenes or events or what have you will always perform better when they're created on your phone versus paid content, ads, things like that, which we'll go over in a few minutes, which need a little bit more production value to stand out in the market. But time and place, that's going to be you can create so much on your phone in-house. And the nice thing about that, moving over to moments, is that if you have the knowledge to create content on the fly that has a little bit better production value, you can differentiate yourself in the sea of businesses in Halifax or nationwide, but it'll also help you capture moments that can't be recreated on camera. So a lot of stuff that we shoot that has a narrative that's driven, things like that, we set up shots there's hours and hours and hours of planning that goes into it to actually make things look a certain way. And we are trying to capture it as real as possible. But if you have an event going on, it's a birthday, a new shipment of something comes in, or whatever is going on there, being able to create on the fly, you're going to be able to capture that in a way that having somebody like us, like Rove, on call, just isn't feasible. So this is where creating content on the fly is really, really good. And then the other thing is just the authenticity and identity of your brand. So the more raw sometimes your day-to-day content feels, the better people can identify with that. They see the real you, they see the real behind the scenes of your business. The main goal with creating content on the fly is really to just try and humanize whatever company or business you're trying to run. If you own a sneaker shop, for example, people don't identify with sneakers, but they can identify with the owner of that shop and the story and how real that shop might be. So being able to create content on your phone, whether it's front facing with your camera or you're taking photos or videos of your employees and of your products, it's really going to help people identify, and it makes the day-to-day content feel more authentic when you're doing it that way.
Yeah, that's the big thing is people don't buy what you're selling anymore. They buy why you're selling it, especially from a small to medium-sized business. It's really important to interject a face, so to speak, into your stories and your content, because it just makes it so much more relatable and less salesy to the audience watching.
Yeah.
Quickly, we're going to touch on how much time you should be spending on your socials. Now, right out of the gates, we recommend, and what we try and do is commit about 5 to 7 hours per week on our social medias.
Minimum.
Now, this can be a little bit daunting because especially if you're, working full time to try and, have your business running successfully, it's hard to carve out that time. Now, there's two ways in which we try and carve out all the content we need for our content needs personally. And that's either creating on the fly or batching. And more often than not, it's a combination of the two that we do. The benefit to creating on the fly, like Ryker said, is you get those in the moment pieces of content film, right? Stuff that's not preemptively planned, things that are happening in the heat of the moment. You get to capture those, you get to post those, and that's great. Additionally, you can do batching, which is very similar to, say, meal prep, right? Instead of having to cook dinner every single night, you set aside a Sunday afternoon, you make 7 meals, you're good to go for the week. Same thing with content. Even if it's just a conglomerate of clips and photos you've taken throughout the week, and you're taking Sunday to go through them, organize and figure out what post is going to be when, it just frees up some time throughout the week so you don't have to constantly be thinking about it. But again, we do a heavy mix between creating on the fly so we don't miss those in the heat of the moments, and also batching, so it kind of frees up some time throughout our week as well.
Yeah, basically anything that goes on our like the personal Rove Productions Instagram feed is pre-planned, unless something crazy happens and we want to update everyone on something that's happening. But for our day-to-day content, we try to post again like 3 to 5 stories a day, whether it's just us editing, it's us driving to a new location, it's us location scouting, meeting with clients, things like that, just to keep people updated on what we're doing, and that like we are still alive, we are still doing things. So
and the same thing goes for our personal Instagram accounts too, because our personal Instagram accounts are just as much Rove as we are, right? So we try and create as much on the fly for our personal accounts as well, because the 3 of these accounts, Ryker's, mine, and Rove Productions, they're just so tightly intertwined.
And then when it comes to outsourcing, this is a big one. And there's a time and place for this. So like we said earlier, if you want to do things on the fly, that's great. There are a few different things here, like marketing campaigns, evergreen content, okay, and scaling your business that might require you to hire a company like Rove Productions to either manage or create these social assets. So when it comes to marketing campaigns for medium to large scale like asks or demands that you're making on the market, you're going to want to have something a bit higher production value, maybe that's scripted or has like higher production visuals, things like that, to differentiate yourself in the market. The way that the online advertising is shifting now is more towards like what happens. This is like a figurative example, but if we own a restaurant or if we own a supplement, for example, and we want to run an ad to try and target people for this supplement. Well, now our budget's $400 for our ad campaign. It's going to put us, the Facebook or Google Analytics algorithm is going to put us in a batch with every other supplement company in North America that's trying to run a similar ad at a similar price. And through the magic of the algorithm, which nobody really understands still because it changes so frequently, they're going to decide a ranking system of how that content ranks against every other ad that has similar quality and similar specs. So what you really want to do, going back to those tips, is like have a really good hook, have really good visuals, and tell some kind of story in as quick a time span as possible. So that's where a company like ours comes in to help you not only create the branding and the marketing campaign, but create the visuals to go alongside that. When it comes to evergreen content, now this is something that we talk about a lot with clients as well, is like, this is content that doesn't lose its value, okay? We have a client, for example, with, oh my goodness, My Home Apparel in Truro. It was one of the first videos that we ever did. Mariah is absolutely amazing. And we did kind of like a brand video for her. We did a little interview. We went to, oh my goodness, what's the name of the? Stanfield's, and kind of filmed the whole process. And she still posts that video today. And we filmed that 2 years ago, because this is for content that as long as your brand story and your brand identity doesn't change, your core values stay the same, that video can be updated every 1, 2, 3 years, but it does have a bit of a higher price tag and a higher production value because we're trying to build something that stands the test of time. As long as your company doesn't undergo any drastic changes, that's something that can live for years.
And again, that ties back into what I said earlier about people buy. They don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The evergreen content or brand story, which would fall under evergreen content, is a perfect example of that, because it just shows a bit more of the backstory behind your brand, and it allows people to attach that a little bit better. And just to touch on the marketing campaigns segment for outsourcing as well, more often than not, we'll have clients approach us and be like, hey, we would like a 60-second video or a 90-second video or a 2-minute video.
Yeah.
And then our first questions are, okay, fantastic. Like, where's the video going to live? I.e., what platform is it going to be on? And what's the intention behind the video? Are you using it to try and convert sales? Are you trying to get people in the door to your business? Are you trying to get people to utilize this coupon code? Like, what's the point? And more often than not, they don't typically have a plan. They just know that they want video content, because video content is king in social media these days, and everyone's doing video, so they feel like they should follow suit. So more often than not, it's a good question to ask yourself, like, cool, I want this video, but why do I want this video, right? And if you don't have the answer, reach out to people like Road Productions, and then we can kind of put you on the straight and narrow for why you're doing this video and what this video can actually do for your business in a positive light.
Yeah, and then the last one here is scaling. So if you're a business owner, whether you're running your business solo or you have a small team, large team, whatever scale you're at, if you're trying to grow your company, hiring Road Productions, for example, to create, curate, manage your social media on your different channels can free up time for you or your other staff, and then also create real qualified targeted content to help with your growth that's specific to the market that you're trying to sell in. Oh, questions.
And that would conclude the presentations onto the question period with a little bit of time left.
Yeah,
we've got some time here.
So we're just gonna.
Oh, can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome. It's funny. I had a question written down, and kind of like we discussed earlier, you guys answered a lot of them. You had talked about like a 6 to 8 second bumper video.
Yeah.
And I was kind of wondering, would they usually be made from cut from a 60 to 90 second narrative video?
Yeah, more often than not, we'll have people reach out with the idea of having a longer format video to live on their socials that has a bit more of a narrative. But from that, they'll usually ask us to derive 1 or 2, usually 6 to 15 second videos. More often than not, we'll kind of look at the company and what we think would work best. And then we normally have a recommendation if 15 would be ideal, or if maybe that's a bit too long, and then we can derive 2 6 to 8 second videos from that as well. But yes, that also kind of comes back to the whole batching content, right? If we're going to be there already for a longer video, it just makes sense for us to derive a couple of short form content from that as well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. On that note too, Nick. It also, we don't shy away from talking about like pricing or anything like that either, but like from a monetary standpoint, if we're creating a 90-second video for you and then we're condensing that into a 6 to 15 second ad, it usually is quite a bit cheaper than us trying to build an entire narrative out for a 6 to 15 second ad. Pricing varies a lot. That was one of the questions that we had, I think 3 or 4 times in the questions that came in beforehand, is how we price things. It's really project by project, because again, you can make a 15-second Super Bowl ad and it's going to cost you $5 million, or we can create a 15-second ad for anywhere from say like 700 to there's such a wide range when it comes to this. And the biggest thing that we do is just try and push people in the direction of, are you married to the idea of having a 5-minute video, or do you need some guidance in what kind of video that you need and what would fit your brand best?
Because usually talking through it, it's pretty easy to condense a 5-minute video down to a 2-minute video, still getting all the information they want in a nice, condensed, digestible manner without being long enough that you're going to have people taper off and stop watching it.
That's excellent. That's a great idea. And we, of course, do lots of video shoots, and there's so many factors. If you need an extra lighting guy, if you need to travel, there's so many different things.
For sure.
So just a few comments. That was awesome. Fantastic presentation. Got to run somewhere else. Excellent job. So this is just reinforcing how great it was. So I'm just gonna what's your 10:39. So a lot of these were covered. Sorry. the best session. I don't disagree. It was really excellent. Yeah. How do you keep track of the changes in the algorithm and what audience engage and with what the audience will engage best with?
Yeah,
That's
so
a tough question.
it's a tough question, and it's probably one that I struggle with the most. I think I personally obsess over the algorithm more than Ryker does. Ryker's kind of got a, I'm going to post and want to post it.
I'm very laissez-faire about the way that I handle my own social media. I love to post things that I really like, and I'm less worried about posting something that's going to fill up the whole screen versus if it's a landscape and I want to get the whole beauty of the landscape in it. Matt's
I'm controlled.
The algorithm.
I'm controlled by Instagram, unfortunately. The best tips I've used personally to try and stay up to date with the algorithm, there's always a handful of people who are hyper aware, whether they're ex-employees of these platforms or they just stay up to date, because normally when there's an update to the algorithm, the company themselves will kind of highlight what they're aiming to do. And through that, some of these people online will derive ways in which you can better increase your engagement or your presence online through the new algorithms. And not to oversimplify the issue, but it is at times as easy as going, how to beat the Instagram algorithm, how to beat the TikTok algorithm. And there's always updated articles of people who've done extensive studies through their own social medias and other people's, and tips and tricks that they've used to kind of bump their overall engagement. But one thing that will never change across all platforms for being seen better and increasing your reach is just consistency.
Yeah.
Posting more through stories, grid posts. That's always the best possible way. And then secondarily, there are things like sourcing qualified hashtags, using certain hashtag techniques like a stepladder approach to increasing your reach that you can do as well.
And on that same note too, like the two really, really big things that will help drive engagement is, like we always say, more engagement equals more engagement. Mm-hmm. So the more you engage with your followers and with other accounts that are similar to the following that you want to have or your target demographic, the more engagement you're going to receive in return, because Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, things like that are going to see that you're an active user on the platform, and they want to reward active users because they want people on their platforms.
And lastly, one thing that's stayed true through all the algorithm updates, at least for Instagram specifically, and obviously Facebook is run by Facebook.
Yeah.
Is that 60-minute window from when you first post a piece of content. Ideally trying to engage with everybody who engages on your post in that first 60-minute window, because throughout that first hour, they're placing you in the algorithm depending on how many likes you accumulate, how many saves, how many shares, how many comments. So the more you can kind of help boost that by responding to comments, like if you have 12 people comment on your photo or your video in the first 60 minutes, but then you go ahead and respond to all 12 of those comments, you just went from 12 to 24 comments in a matter of
few minutes,
right?
Perfect. Yeah, these are just really great tips. I know we're talking about social media, but wondering how to integrate a video into a website without using YouTube.
Oh yeah. So this is it. It depends on what. It depends on what platform you're using to host your website on. If you have a web developer, most likely they can integrate the video.
Just embed it directly into the website.
Yeah, and if you're using something like Wix or Squarespace, or even my goodness, what's it called? Shopify. There's actually plugins for those that you can like drag and drop. I believe Shopify you have to pay an addition to do that, but Wix and Squarespace, there should be an integration feature on there that will just allow you to embed the video. One of the only things that's an issue with embedding videos is that it slows your website down so much.
Yeah.
So like, again, time and place, but I would just be choosy about what videos you're adding on to your website, the length, the quality, and the speed. And there are ways through those websites that you can actually, run a speed test on your website to see what percentile it ranges in. So.
All right, this is great. And I'll just start to kind of rapid fire the rest of them. What are your sources of music?
So there's a couple copyright-free sites, 3 big ones that are pretty much used exclusively across the creative industry, and that is MusicBed, Epidemic Sound, and Artlist. We are currently using Artlist. It's an American-based site, and the reason for that is it's a singular annual fee, but when you purchase a subscription to Artlist, that license you're purchasing takes those songs. You have that license for life, and you can use it across social media. You can use it for broadcast. You can use it for radio, TV, production movies, and like it won't get taken out. You have that that license for life.
Yeah.
But then you have companies like Epidemic Sound and MusicBed, which are both fantastic sites. We've used all three.
Yeah.
However, they have a different subscription licensing service, like different levels. One is for personal use if you're using it for your own social medias. And they normally base it off of like a follower count typically, because through that they kind of derive an estimated impressions you'll get. And it does get a little bit costly. So I know for MusicBed and Epidemic, like for instance, if you're going to be licensing a song that's going to be used for broadcast use, you're looking at usually $1,000 just for that one video, one-time use of that song.
Yeah.
But again, with Artlist, I personally like the music better. It's updated, literally dated new songs, and you do have that license for life across every platform for literally any conceivable use you could think of.
So even if you decide to get rid of your membership, you still have access to that. And I just see a couple of questions there about like how to get away with posting without your videos being taken down for copyright. It's using a copyright-free website is going to be the best way to do that. There are some free ones. Like Mixkit, for example, is a free one that you can use. They're great, but like my only disclaimer with this is my motto when it comes to this is that you can either dig through a whole bunch of crap for free on copyright websites, or you can pay some money and dig through a little bit less. So
one additional thing too, when it comes to not getting videos on social media flagged and taken down, is specifically with Instagram and TikTok. They have a licensing and copyright agreement with a lot of artists where you can actually just search under the directory for like Instagram Music or TikTok, and you can use popular pop songs, rock songs, what have it, just because it's a shorter sample. So I know specifically for Instagram stories, you can just search virtually any song, whether it's Iron Maiden, ABBA, Justin Bieber, it doesn't really matter. However, one thing to note is when you're doing that overrides the audio in your story as well. So it'll be harder to kind of hear if you're talking over it. There's actually one that just popped up. When using hashtags, is it okay to use the same hashtag on each post, or at some point will Instagram flag or not show them as much, aka just copy paste it? So I've used this tactic quite a bit. I personally have noticed an almost degradation within my engagement from copy and pasting. I loosely touched on a strategy I use called the step ladder approach, and it is time consuming. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But what I do is I normally aim for like 25 hashtags. You can do a max of 30, but I find hitting 30 comes off a bit spammy. So I aim for 25, and I'll break it down into five hashtag sections, or approximately break it down into those 5 sections, where I will get 5 hashtags that have less than 10,000 uses on them. Then I'll get 5 hashtags that have around 100,000, another 5 at 250,000, another 5 around 1 to 2 million, and then a final 5 that have 3+ million uses. So what this allows you to do with the algorithm is when you use those lower end hashtags, if someone searches that, chances are you're going to be one of the top pieces of content in that, which will drive a bit of engagement there. And that trickles down to that next layer where you already have that engagement level built up. So when people are viewing the hashtags around 10 to 100,000, you're getting more likes there, and just so on and so forth. So again, it's time consuming. You can use the same hashtags, but you will get better results if you're changing up the hashtags and putting a few key specific hashtags that are actually derived from the post yourself. So for instance, I posted a photo of me walking down a highway with my camera in Cape Breton, and I literally put Sony Alpha, Sony Alpha Nova Scotia. So that's oddly specific to that, because again, like it comes off less spammy to the algorithm when you have such a unique hashtag that's not used in abundance.
So I would like copy and paste is totally fine, but within that, maybe every time you post, delete 5 of the hashtags and put 5 new unique ones in. And then same thing goes for the next one. You can reuse those same 25 that you're using, but just like cut 5 out and add 5 new hashtags in each time you use them.
And make sure you change the very first hashtag as well.
Oh, that That was great. Somebody wrote mix kit. I'm not sure if you addressed that.
Yeah, that's what Ryker touched on. It's like a free site for templates and sound effects.
Sorry. I'm just trying to keep up. There's so much awesome information.
Yeah, no worries.
I think this is going to be such a great tool for everyone to go back and reference later. There's so many things that I've heard that I'd love to go back and that out. Unless there's any more questions. Question: Vimeo or YouTube? Which one is best for posting videos?
So I know people who do film, like short films or ads, they'll host a lot of their videos on Vimeo. Vimeo is almost more of a polished version of YouTube for the intention of hosting videos. Yeah, not like, you're not going to find like random, like epic fail compilations on Vimeo. So yeah, I would just say Vimeo is more of a polished version of YouTube. But I mean, worst case, double down, post on both, right? You already have a video asset. It's just going to take an extra 2 minutes to post it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great advice. Yeah. Well, that was so excellent. So I'm going to take back over the screen. I'm sure everyone will be disappointed that you got the presentation's over. Maybe we can have you guys back for follow-up. That was excellent.
I'd love to.
So thank you so much. Just give me one quick sec here while I take back over. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to start my video. Okay, I was muted there, rookie move, so my apologies. So thank you again to Matt and Ryker from Road Productions and Jason for answering those questions. Such an excellent presentation, so much valuable information. And I would like to encourage everyone to subscribe to our In Touch newsletter to receive information on upcoming webinars. And the next webinar will be September 2nd on Thursday, of course. And if you want to go back and reference any of the previous webinars, of course, you go to our website, tourismns.ca/webinar-series. And of course, we would encourage you to stay connected with our Tourism Nova Scotia. Anything that, whenever we market the province, we always encourage visitors to come to novascotia.com. So that's our consumer-facing website. If you have any questions about today or any feedback, you can email us at tnsbusiness@novascotia.ca. Sign up for our In Touch newsletter, where we talk about great opportunities, new programs, webinars. Follow us at Tourism NS for Twitter. LinkedIn is Tourism Nova Scotia. Our corporate website is tourismns.ca. And of course, we have a really excellent COVID-19 resource section, tourismns.ca/coronavirus. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have an excellent day.